What's up guys? Today we're gonna take a look at the Mari preferences and some tweaking, and we start right now. We want to take a look at preferences now. So up here under the edit preferences. So this is a topic that's kind of involved, and some of the knobs I actually don't really know myself to say that I'm an expert. I'm just gonna run through some of the things that I set up and override. And so first off, we can, if you hit question mark there, you get the online help, and that can explain some of the stuff. But yeah, so let's see here. So for example, we have tabs here with different settings. Some of them is something I override. So color, I don't really mess with this that much. So this is the maximum color picker value. You can set this for the color picker. So this tab I kind of always leave alone, and I guess the color profiler stuff is usually set up maybe by your studio if you're in one, so then you shouldn't really mess with that. So data, that's something you can go and mess with. So for example, I usually up the autosave frequency. I think it's a little too aggressive sometimes, so that can be something I mess with. Channel cache, don't really use that. Exporter, fast, so let's see what that is. So this is a can be a little faster to export when you have this set to fast. So this is the new mode in 3.3, I think, and accurate was the old default one. So the fast one takes away some of the calculation for the color transform onto the GPU. So before it was only CPU. So this will speed up, I guess, exporting a bit. Importer fast, that's, I kind of have this as default. Most of it is default over here. Can reset. So project thread count, I guess this is the on the CPU, must be, because I have 6 cores and 12 threads. So let's see what it says. Thread count, threads for background tasks, yeah, and max memory. So if you have a lot more memory, I guess you can up this. I have 32 in mine, so, but then again, Mari is most about the GPU anyway, so I upped this to something default. It's 10 every 10 seconds. You check for drive space. I just slide it away a bit. So the GPU settings, this is something can have impact GPU. So MIP map, this has to do with fast, accurate. I set it to fast. So if we hover over some of the settings here, so we see an additional pop-up. So accurate, I guess it's it will be better if you can afford it. So it's linearized before downsampling. Fast, but yeah, I haven't really seen any difference. So at the moment I have it at fast here at home. So tiled renders. When I bake, for example, if you have a GPU with a lot of GPU memory, increasing this might speed up the baking process. I have 6 gig here. I'm planning to upgrade to a 1080 Ti that has 11 in a while. So, but yeah, my graphics card usually performs okay with 4096. Deferred shading, let's see what it says about that here. Specify whether to use deferred shading. This is blah blah. Yeah, I guess this is on. Let's default deferred texture array. Let's see. Turns defer on off. This is active May. More efficient use of open. Yeah, why not? Sounds like a good plan. So, okay, let's say okay there first. So we have a setting here, if we go back to GPU now, called allow depth projections. So what that does, if we see here, I have a environment light here. If I turn it off and turn on one of the lights and say render shadows, you see nothing happens here. And that's because the setting for allow depth projections in turn off there. If I turn it on, sometimes it gets a little slow right after you mess with this setting. So now you see, now we have shadows on the light. This can be a little expensive sometimes. Depends on the GPU. So if you have a not so powerful GPU, you might turn this off. And let's see, let's take the intensity down. But if you can afford it, sometimes it's nice to have some kind of shadowing, and you get a little more precise and plausible behavior than if you turn off the shadowing. So let's have it on now and go back to preferences, GPU again, and max image memory. This is the amount of memory the Mari attempts to catch onto the graphics card, not going over there. So this is for let's see what it says in the more descriptive. So what was it? Max image memory. So sets the maximum amount of additional GPU memory Mari uses for tasks other than painting, for example filter. So this is not how much GPU memory it will allocate when painting. So this is something that has been confusing in the community for a long time. So people think, oh, we set this up to like the same as your GPU, and it's not that. So you can sometimes increase it, decrease it even. Okay, so use shader caches, that's good. And so let's see, what else do we have here? I guess I have most of this. So this one I've been playing with, the parallel shader compile threads. So I think this was introduced in 3.3 as well. And I'm playing to see if there is a sweet spot. I'm not sure exactly, but I guess it can do more shader compiles parallel. And you have, this is a new 3.3. So legacy, dynamic. So let's go into the settings here and see what it says. Specifies a strategy to use when compile guilds, blah blah. Okay, legacy optimized. So this is the old behavior, and I have, at the moment I set it to dynamic. Compile shader less frequently and fast speed maybe going to automatic as well. See if that makes a difference. So when it comes to the look and the speed of things, this is the virtual texture might be a place where you actually will see a big difference. So let's okay that. Go back and I will show you some things here in the GPU. We have this virtual texture depth and virtual texture type. So if we drag this down, I think it, let's default this. If I hit this back to 1, we're gonna see a lot of strange errors and things here. Sometimes. Let's take current channel preferences again, GPU, and see if we can get this to, yeah, here we see. You see that it's kind of low res and doesn't really display the textures that nice. So if we look here at my memory info down here, so this is how much memory I have and how much is free. And if we go back to preferences and GPU, we can play with a virtual, what's it called? Texture depth. Let's take this to 2 and see. Here we see now that it starts to be real wonky here. And set it to byte maybe. See what happens. You see that the textures look awful, and this is, it's, whoops, yeah, you see. So if we now increase the GPU texture depth, so I've noticed that the lower the virtual texture size, the more depth you can have. And if you look up here, you're gonna see the higher I crank this, the more GPU memory it will allocate to the GPU. And let's try something like that. So now it will force more of the textures into the GPU, and it will maintain a better display even when you're zoomed out. And if you have, if you go back and put this back to something lower again and see what happens. Sometimes when you zoom in fast, if you have a, you can see that there's a, if you zoom in fast, sometimes you get like a pixelated low res display, and then it goes crisp. And that's because it has a lower bitmap, and when it zooms in, I guess it has to recalculate. But if you have this setting to something higher here, so if you would set this to 8K, for example, you have to go back. So this is kind of a balancing act. If you have a higher base virtual texture size, you have fewer slots here. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what's the sweet spot, but I usually have it at 4K, and I set this, I play with this slider and look at the video free. You can't go too high, then it will complain, say that you have, that you're gonna go over your video memory card size. Half and float will also impact, so you will have less. Let's go back here. So if you paint a lot of float, 16-bit, I guess, virtual texture type half will be better. Then you're gonna have, so this is all, this depends entirely on your system. So let's see, let's go for a few more, see what happens. Let's try there. Sometimes when you switch, it's a little slow in the beginning. So my card is a little laggy here. Let's go back and see what happens. GPU, let's go to byte. It's a little, yeah, it's a little more snappy going that way. But then again, let's go and see the documentation about the depth. Half. Sets the pixel type for blah blah. Gives more precision when painting. Yeah, that makes sense. So if you can afford it, I would set it to something like, let's try 2K half and up this a bit. And let's see, 3.3 with free. I would like to have a kick-ass 24 gig memory to try this out on. But yeah, that's too expensive for my for my personal blog. So let's see See what happens. Yeah, so this one is worth playing with and see what gives you the best performance. At the moment I set it back to byte. Increase this. It's gonna give more speed for me at the moment. Yeah, feels a little snappier to navigate. Okay, you see there, you can flick around and do stuff. So, okay, let's go back, edit preferences again, see what else we have on the GPU there. And yeah, so this is, let's see what it was default. So under the MISC, use custom font size if you're blind or something. Oh, I don't wanna run more with this setting. Was 9. What else do I mess with? In this MISC tab, not so much. So this one, if you have sliders, you have 3 decimals, you can set this higher. And let's go to navigation. So momentum, that's kind of a freaky setting. If we decrease this friction, so at the moment, oops, if I decrease the friction, or let's cancel, and so if I just tumble around here, just flick it like this, you see it stops. So Mari has a strange settings. Navigation friction, if you lower this and hit OK, and now tumble, it will follow through with the force. It's a little freaky. So the lesser the friction, the more it's gonna tumble. So let's do this. It's gonna tumble for forever almost. I don't really. I have it set to full friction, but yeah, maybe if you wanna do some random, wanna paint some random places, you just flick around and see where you end up. Maybe. I don't see any real use for it. So control type, I have it set to Mari, but there's a few other options. I'm not sure what they do actually, because I use the Mari. So okay, Sentinel, look at, that's what I have it. So let's see, navigation, look at object. So if I hit the F tab, it centers. If I now go to, let's see if we can get some other interests out of this. Selection, let's try that. See if I select this one. So now it frames the selected object. If I hit the A button, let's go back. Yeah, it doesn't do that much of a difference to me. So I usually have it as look at. Let's see what else we have that I usually set. So navigation, circular motion, yes, I have that on. So that's if you hit Control R, you can tumble around the canvas. If we, let's see, if we turn that off, whoa, it behaves differently. Yeah, I like the circular motion on, because otherwise it was tumbling back and forth and that was strange. Okay, preferences again. So node graph. Okay, so by default this is disabled. And if you have a node graph going, let's take the node graph, dock it down there. See, you have this Mari's node graph has two modes, basic and advanced. So basically, by default, you can't use the node graph. You can use node graph layers or graph layers. But if you want to use the node graph, you have to enable it here, and you will see the underlying bells and whistles. So I've started to build for an upcoming tutorial. It's going to be a node graph tutorial, and so this is here. It's going to be the action, but basically it is what it is. It enables the display of the node graph. And what else? So the port list and non-port list. This is a if we now go and create a new node here. See this one. This is the old way. Let's make a cloud. No port list, vertical, and port list. This is what I like to use. If I make a cloud now, and a merge, it look like this, and you, instead of connecting from top to bottom, you connect from the side. This one makes more sense to me, so I have it set to that. Control type nuke. I'm not entirely sure what this does. Let's go to the node graph. You want to zoom and pan Mari on nuke navigation style, yeah. Let's see, set it to Mari and see what happens. I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess for my liking, I guess nuke doesn't feel that big of a difference, to be honest. Nothing major. Node graph again. Okay, so nuke, I don't use this, the nuke to Mari bridge, not here at home at least. Painting, so this is something I set to, if we take a brush for example, and let's make this bake the paint node. Let's make it 2K and bake it down and give it a second so I can paint on it. So there we go. Let's take this brush. So you see, here we go. Now it's just a round, like a round short brush tip. If we set this to outline, you will see the actual alpha. But there's a caveat with this, so sometimes some of the brushes gets really slow when you have this. So which one is it that's really offensive? Let's see, which one is it? I've noticed, like, for example, let's see. There's some of the stock brushes behaves strangely when you have this set to outline, I've noticed. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's the case anymore. It feels better now, actually. Maybe they fixed it in the latest alpha, or the latest 3.3, I don't know. Previously I've noticed setting it to round, and I kind of like the feeling of this anyway. It's less distracting to have just slightly like the outline of that instead of seeing it. I think it blocks the view. So okay, let's go back to edit, preferences again. Okay, projection, default color depth 16-bit half, and yeah, I use that. So path, if you have an like HDR, so usually I have this set here, so I can show you what you do. You can have an HDR path, so I have a NAS drive where I have like a library of stuff. So let's go to my global HDR, and I have a folder called Mari, and there I store a few HDRs I usually have as a reference. So if you go to, let's see, it might be needing a refresh. Oh, so one caveat of this is still they haven't fixed the preview. So let's turn on the background so we can see it. So here we see. Let's turn the light off. We just have the. So here's a few extra that doesn't ship with Mari default, but you can download it at my blog, themarichannel.com. I have most of them there for download. So let's switch through here. This one is really bright. This one is not mine. You can download it. I'm not sure where it was. HDR Labs, I think. So this one is from Stockholm. Also from Stockholm, under a bridge. And here's a stock one. A little flat. Okay, so HDR, you can have it on startup if you have some images you want to access. And let's go to, let's see what else. Path, PTEX. I don't use PTEX. Don't use this as well, and session. Haven't used this as well, I must say. Well, I use sessions, but I just leave this to default. So yeah, that kind of concludes. So what I usually mess with is that's the GPU side is where you're gonna see most of the speed gain. So if you have a beefy graphics card, increase the render size for baking. This can give a lot of speed ups. And so this one is definitely worth messing with. The parallel shader compile, I'm still evaluating if what settings is the best for my system. Thanks for sticking out with this lengthy tutorial about preferences in Mari. And as usual, if you want to be notified what's going on my YouTube channel, just hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. And yeah, see you in the next one. Bye bye.